Yeah. What's up, bro?
What's going on?
We were told we should do a podcast.
What up, Adam?
Told we should do a podcast.
Podcast.
We were told we should do a podcast.
Like literally, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is our podcast.
This is us fulfilling that.
Yeah,
request.
We did it. So now
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah.
This is episode, who knows?
Who knows?
I would say we're probably into the late teens now.
This is episode 14.
Oh,
So
14.
mid-teens.
Early teens.
Wow.
Early
Yeah.
mid-teens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ali, has it ever been done before?
You know what? No, Ellen,
No, yeah.
it has
Guys, what would Alan do? He go, guys,
Guys.
we're breaking new ground here. What does he say?
Okay. Guys, I'm just so proud of us for breaking new ground
We're breaking
here,
the
guys.
ground.
An audio medium, pure, no video attached.
No video attached. 14 episodes.
14 episodes.
And it's not just one person sitting in a microphone. There's three of us.
Three of us.
It's nuts.
I feel like we're
It's
paving the way for
never
other
been
people.
done before.
That's got, like, a lot of people can follow us down this road.
So when there's three white guys, they could be like, oh my God.
I have opinions. I want to share them with the world. They have the
they
freedom
could
to
also
do that.
Yeah,
podcast.
because we've paved the way for
Because
them.
we've paved the way for them. You're welcome. Guys, have you heard of this? Have you heard of a trilogy of films called Lord of the Rings?
Oh, explain.
Okay, if this is gonna make a real difficult if you haven't heard of it. Have you?
I think I know the film you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh,
No,
that's
it's three.
really
It's three of them. It's not
Oh,
just one.
was it 3 films?
Yeah, yeah.
3 films.
Right. Sorry. Go on. Anyway, tell us.
Have you watched them?
Oh.
Many times.
Many times?
Like almost like once a
Actually-
year, I think.
Yeah,
Or one-
quite recently actually.
Yeah,
me and
yeah.
Jen did an extended edition watch through.
Oh yeah, Ali, how many times have you watched Lord of the Rings?
Next question there. Have
Yeah.
not watched it at all.
You have not.
This
No.
is absolutely
I'm so
outrageous.
sorry.
So,
Goodness.
apart from this moment right now, very unlikely rather that Ellie's going to be chiming into this episode.
Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
nothing to say here,
Nothing
sorry.
to contribute.
Didn't we actually have, because we've known this about Ellie for a while, and it's
We have.
outrageous.
It's outrageous.
But we were going to potentially do some sort of series where we force you to watch it.
Yeah,
and
I
we-
think so. I mean,
Yeah.
Ali, how do you feel about being forced? Like, you're still getting paid. You sit down and you watch a movie and you
Yeah.
talk about it.
I'll do it for the love of content.
For the love of content.
For the entertainment. And, I mean, I probably should just watch Lord of the Rings. I am a Kiwi, so...
That's the
Yeah.
thing.
At this point,
Yeah.
hold off, and we should do.
Yeah, I think hold on.
Yeah, I will. I'll hold
I
on.
I want to find the way to do like the proper, not just sit down in front of a TV, do the cinema. Like,
Yeah.
we could book out a cinema or something. And be
It,
like,
it really is. It's to me, the fact that and absolutely no disparaging to you, like the fact that it just wasn't on your radar. To me, in my mind, like everyone has
Yeah.
seen Lord of the Rings.
In my bubble, it was
Yeah.
the biggest thing.
The crux of this episode is Lord of the Rings turning us into filmmakers. So we're not just going to jazz on about
Not just-
Lord
yeah,
of the Rings
very
for
good point.
an entire podcast. This is going to be why Lord of the Rings turned us into the people that we are today
Yes.
in regards to being
general
filmmakers.
influence it had, because it wouldn't have had much influence on me wanting to be a filmmaker, but it would have had a lot of influence on me wanting to be an actor.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
for sure.
for sure.
The entire film industry changed because of Lord
Yeah,
of
it
the Rings.
really did.
Like the fact that Weta Workshop, which is now probably Weta Workshop and Weta Digital actually, which are now two different companies. It basically spawned two companies which are basically industry leaders worldwide
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And then the amount of I'm sure there's a whole lot of stories I don't know about lighting guys and grip guys that now have their own companies because of Lord of the Rings
Absolutely,
and like
it's
stunt
massive.
teams and all those things.
Yeah.
Like feature American and Hollywood films were already being made in New Zealand, but it really helped propel New Zealand.
Yeah, and I mean, this is such a cultural milestone for New Zealand. It's hard to, I don't know. If
And you again, it may be our bubble. You felt it, eh?
You felt it. And people I know who had no interest in being in the film industry felt it. Like, the fact that there was, like, literally a parade for the final film from New Zealand Parliament all the way through until Embassy Theatre. Like, the entire street was packed with people. Did either of you go to this?
I did not, but I watched it on TV.
I think
Yeah.
I did. I think because I
I
was in
was-
a drama school. What year was that? What year?
I kinda
It
wish
would
I
have
had
been
phone.
2003.
Yeah, I was at drama school. I think
yeah.
I did.
Yeah, I was in there as well, and just the crowds. I actually bought a seat because I was so
Yeah.
addicted. I bought, there were like grandstands just outside Embassy Theatre, so like they had just reached the end of the parade, and I got a bunch of autographs and stuff. It was one of those.
Oh,
So
really?
flippin'
Fucking
cool.
lucky you. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
I was just so into it, man. But that never happens. When
Yeah,
has
yeah.
any film ever done this for any other
Had a
country?
parade.
Had a parade.
I mean, I know they
like-
have like their opening, like
opening the
events
things, but
and
that's
whatnot,
usually the red carpet's
Yeah.
what.
Yeah, and it's a very specific spot. Whereas this was like
This is
the
kilometers
city
long.
shut down.
The city
Wellington-
shut down.
Yeah.
and it's kilometers long through some of the
And
key streets
it was
of-
also the one of the first, because I don't think movie 1 and 2 had the international premiere in New Zealand, did it?
I think you're right. I don't think
Only number 3 had the international premiere.
Yeah, Peter
in New
Jackson
Zealand.
really pushed for it.
okay.
This was the thing. Like Peter Jackson was such a proud Kiwi. It had to be shot in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And it's the final premiere had to be in New Zealand, and he really did just change New Zealand. Like, and so much of New Zealand's tourism, I imagine to this day, is still based from Lord of the Rings. When New Zealand is referenced with like tourists, or like you go overseas, it's
Lord of the
either
Rings.
All Blacks or Lord of the Rings,
Or,
Middle
or
Earth,
Flight of Conchords.
yeah.
Not so much
Not
these
so
days.
much anymore, but for a while there, Flight of the Conchords
Yeah.
were right up there as well.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's part of our national identity at this point.
How did it affect your passion and dreams of becoming a filmmaker?
Well, I think I knew film was something that I was really interested in, but that was the definitive. Watching Fellowship of the Ring for the first time was the moment that I was like, yes, this is it for me. It was in the Embassy Theatre. I think I knew before this, but I was just so enthralled. But there was a moment towards the end of the film where Aragorn cuts off the Uruk-hai's head with it, the whole cinema burst in applause and stood on their feet, and it was like this moment. I was like, this is like moving people, and I'm so enthralled in the story and the world building, and obviously it's flipping Lord of the Rings. So, and I remember going with my parents and my sister, and my dad was like, he's an avid reader, and he was saying, if this is half as good as the books, it's going to be one of the best films ever.
Yeah.
And I was like, at the end, was it half as good as the books? He was like, oh yeah, like Peter Jackson just
Yeah.
knocked it out of the park.
That's the thing. He didn't just do a competent job.
Nah.
He made one of the best films of all time.
He
Oh,
did-
and still
all
on the top
three.
10. Like whenever lists of top 10 films come out,
Yeah.
it's always in the top 10.
Yeah.
At least 1, 2, or all 3 will be in the top 10.
I don't know how he did it. It's so many years. It's so much time. It's like the level he was working at, like the amount of characters and world, like everything's new.
I mean,
the
he
language,
luckily had a
like,
manual.
He had a manual. He had a Bible to follow.
For me, I was already, like, I feel like my journey of loving fantasy and loving RPG video games.
Yeah.
And, like, I'd been playing Zelda and I'd been playing Final Fantasy games. And I don't think World of Warcraft would have been out yet.
Nah, I don't
but
think
Warcraft
not yet.
2 and 3, I'd never played Warcraft 1 at that point. But I played Warcraft 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And like fantasy, my life was going, okay, fantasy and RPG and that kind of fantasy storytelling.
Yeah.
I had read The Hobbit, coincidentally, just in school, very soon before the Lord of the Rings films
crazy.
came. I'd never read Lord of the Rings until after. But like all the books I would read would always be that kind of hero's journey books. I'd seen Star Wars prior, and so that kind of that narrative of small town boy destined for something great, has the hero's journey, does the thing, was like basically Link from Zelda, like was something that I was very invested in, and so just to see it done, so and to the side of that, I also already wanted to be an actor or a director, and so to see it done so competently was just mind-blowing. And the whole thing talking about seeing it done in New Zealand by a New Zealand director just suddenly went,
Yeah.
I think this could be something that I do in my life.
Yeah.
then, because there's evidence that it can be done.
Exactly. That was
And
that
not
for me
not
as well.
only that the filmmaking side of it can be done, but my interests over here of video games and fantasy and fighting and fun and elves and dwarves and hobbits, that can be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can be like reach such critical acclaim and
Yeah.
touch so many people. Yeah, so for me at least, it was the pivotal moment, and from that point on, I was like, that's all I had focused. Like, I'm gonna be. Well, I was striving for director.
Yeah.
Because Peter Jackson, and that has since pivoted. I still want to direct the occasional thing, but I'm more interested in like the writing and the creating and the.
So because I never wanted to be a filmmaker, that was never my goal. But for me, as an actor, I was at drama school at the time when it was coming out, and I auditioned to be one of the writers of Rohan. And I remember Lord of the Rings just being just inspiring me with that passion. Like, oh my god, I
Yeah.
want to be Aragorn.
It was
Yeah.
palpable.
One day I
right?
want to be Aragorn in a
Yeah.
film. Like,
Yeah.
totally remember that.
Did
And-
you didn't have any bit part,
Nah,
even extra in Lord
not
of the Rings,
any
did
of
you?
the
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
Mm. I feel like
Boo.
all three of us were just a tiny bit too young,
Yeah.
weren't we?
Yeah, but I'm also glad I didn't have any. I'm glad I got to see it so purely.
Yeah,
Like
true.
I
We weren't actually in the industry at that stage,
Yeah, I
so it was
remember-
just an experience for you.
I remember there was a quote from Peter Jackson years ago. He was saying that he wished he could forget, like, for a while, all the work he did on
Yeah.
it, so he could just watch it as a new audience member. I'm like, man, I feel that
Totally,
to my
yeah.
soul. Like I don't know. I should have checked. I don't know how many years he put into it, but I think it was
It was like 10 years.
decade or so.
It
that he
was
put
10 or
into it.
12 years.
Imagine being
I
part of
know.
the fellowship.
Imagine being part of the
I
fellowship.
sometimes have this like. I feel like this longing, this like sadness that I was never part of that.
Same.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
dude, as a
like,
kid,
how bizarre is that?
as a kid, like that's all I wanted.
I would have loved to have just been like one of the fellowship of the actors and for 4 years hanging out with
Yeah.
Oh,
mates
fuck,
and
it would have been
acting and
so good.
I want to
Even just to be like-
Yeah.
I want to be part of that.
Even
Yeah.
to be second tier fellowship, like being like Faramir or something,
Yeah.
would have
Oh,
been
yeah.
fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Imagine being fucking Elijah
I-
Wood. I'm so jealous.
But Lord of the Rings behind the scenes was like my heroine.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I would watch the film as a boy. I've owned all of the cassettes. What the fuck you call it? VHS. When I was younger. And I would watch the film and then, like, go have lunch or whatever, and then watch the behind the scenes. And
Yeah.
like the behind the scenes in all three films were just as long as the film.
Yeah.
They would have.
Oh, and the DVD, well, the extended edition DVDs, they were like 5, 6, 7 hours.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there was so much behind the scenes content
Yeah,
in each of those sets.
And I would just watch those behind the scenes over and over and over again.
And that was
holy
part of the
crap.
added fuel to the fire of these guys felt like mates. Like I don't know what it was.
know.
That was part of the sadness for me was I felt like I knew these
So
guys,
jealous.
but I knew they didn't know me. And I was just like, I want to hang out with these guys. So, and then
Yeah.
you're going on this epic journey with them, and
I wonder at what point someone went, we're making something special. We need a behind the scenes team that fucking captures
all of this.
everything.
well, this
Yeah.
is from all accounts pretty early because just the amount of content that they shot. Well, this kind of ties into my next question about because Lord of the Rings they committed to 3 films. How the hell did Lord of the Rings happen, especially with Peter? Like I'd believe it with if Steven Spielberg signed on or something.
Yeah.
But Peter Jackson had like a little bit of status.
Yeah,
He-
he'd gone from. No offense, Peter Jackson. I know you listen to our podcast,
Yeah,
Peter
yeah.
Jackson, but in my opinion, his very first film, Bad Taste, is like it's a technical marvel. Don't get me wrong. The fact that he made it on film when he was that young is amazing. It's not my favorite film.
That's putting it lightly.
But Brain Dead is enjoyable.
Yeah.
It
had cool moments. I definitely watched it when I finished Lord of the Rings. I was just like, what else Peter Jackson got? I just watched everything. I was like, none of this scratched my itch.
Meet the Feebles is pretty fucking weird.
Yeah. But you can see throughout he's experimenting with all these things. That's part of it. They're all little building blocks to Lord of the Rings.
Almost put Heavenly Creatures to the side because he had done horror, or gore,
yeah.
and then he did Frighteners, which is comedy horror.
Yeah.
So you've got this comedy horror director
Yeah.
who's, I mean, Frighteners is a Hollywood film, I guess,
I think without
but a low budget Hollywood film.
yeah.
And then they went, here's $400 million, do 3,
Yeah. It's absurd.
It
like,
is kind
and-
of absurd.
and don't do horror, do high fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're and not just like $400 million. It was here's our last $400 million. This was New Line Cinema's last.
And they were
big
going
Is that
under.
film.
all it costs for all 3 films?
Yeah,
I suppose
4 mil.
inflation, but
But no, it's still to this day. Like it's considering how much they got out of it,
At
it's
that
still
point,
mental.
it was still a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me wrong. Still
Yeah.
a heap of money.
Yeah.
But if we consider like Marvel movies these days, like 250 million themselves, and don't even come close to what Lord of the Rings managed to accomplish.
yeah.
Like they, it's insane what they managed to pull off. But yeah, because like what you're saying is very true. He hadn't made anything perfect. Because in my mind, Lord of the Rings is like almost perfect.
Yeah,
And
The
he hadn't
Frighteners is a
Oh,
good film,
everything's
but it's
competent.
not perfect.
Everything's really competent. Heavenly Creatures was really good. Had some great performances, and I think he just managed to get the right building blocks with Frighteners because it was like this is an example of what we can do with VFX. You look, and this is my VFX company.
Yeah.
And with the,
Did he create Weta for
Weta was around for
I
quite a
didn't
long
know-
time
oh,
before.
okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Um,
He created Weta for Brain Dead. I do know
I think,
that.
yeah,
He
yeah,
created
yeah.
Weta. I do know
Oh,
that.
okay.
yeah. So it was very.
Because that's when he first started working with
Richard Taylor.
Richard Taylor. He started working with Richard Taylor on Brain Dead.
And yeah, so their partnerships, obviously, like, God, thank God that they met each other. But yeah, so he got these perfect building blocks together, and something he did was he pitched himself for Lord of the Rings. He went out of his way because he had made these films, and then he gave an example of what like Gollum could look like.
Yeah.
Examples of the battles that he created. That I can't remember the name of that battle sim.
Oh yeah, that's another thing from behind the scenes documentaries.
Yeah.
They just showed you all of the tech.
Yeah,
and
all the
like,
tech. They really got into
massive.
I think it is. Yeah.
Or mega massive.
Yeah.
I think it might be massive.
Something weird that I want Epic and Messy Man to get into these epic battles at some point.
Yeah.
But anyway, they literally created technology for like, look at this, look at what we can do. They showed examples of like breaking down scenes and pitched themselves to all these different studios. And I remember stories about all these different companies. It sounds like they got a lot of offers, but they were all offers for one film. Or there might have been one or a couple for two films, and Peter Jackson was somehow adamant.
It had to be three.
It had to be three.
It's always been $3, eh?
It's always
Yeah,
been $3.
it's $3,
Yeah, it's $3.
And like even in the extended versions, which fucking they go on, like they cut out a lot from the books.
Yeah, a lot.
Like there is a lot of shit that's been cut out of those books.
Yeah.
Just because they're pretty like tomey.
Yeah.
So what the hell? How could you turn those 3 books into a single film?
Yeah, it's
without absolutely ruining it.
destroying.
Yeah.
Destroying.
Give it to Tasman. He'd edit it down.
Yeah,
get
Tasman
a
down.
Get a
1 minute
60
get a
seconds.
1 minute meme out of.
Tasman's one of our editors who does a great job at turning our 3-minute like sketches into a 1 minute, like it has to be less than 1 minute meme, and he gets all the beats.
Yeah, it gets all
Yeah.
the
Great.
So
maybe we should challenge
as-
Tasman
as
to do
a-
that. How would you
as
cut
a-
down Lord of the Rings to
Yeah.
60 seconds?
As a gag, we should give him Lord of the Rings, all 3, and
To put
go
into
make
1 minute?
make a 1 minute meme out of this.
I'd
Fucking
love to see that.
fuck it, and the meme title is "Destroying a Powerful Ring." Be like,
Yeah.
Destroying Powerful Ring be like.
It'd be like, it would be like, what's the first showing the ring? You must destroy it.
Yeah.
And then cut to second film.
Yeah. You must destroy it.
no. Then you cut to the Fellowship. You are the Fellowship
You are
of
the
the
Fellowship.
Ring.
We
Then you
must
cut
go
to
to
second
the-
film. On
Yeah.
the end of the first film, like, I will come with you, Frodo.
Yeah. I will-
Like, like,
Yeah, you could.
He'll figure it out.
oh fuck, it'd be hilarious.
But in summation, I genuinely think, just to end that point, I wouldn't have pursued film as adamantly if I hadn't watched Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings just hadn't existed. So in a way, Viva wouldn't exist without, like, because
NPC Man or if
NPC
Viva
Man.
exists, NPC Man wouldn't exist. Also,
Yeah.
like it's like that is the spawn for
Yeah.
it.
But also, the New Zealand film industry wouldn't be the way it
No,
what
it
is
wouldn't.
now.
No.
It wouldn't. It would be significantly smaller.
We might have been discovered in a different way, and but that made New Zealand discovered by the rest of the world, like all the landscapes, and go, we should go and film in this place called Queenstown. It's great.
Yeah.
There's all this kind of amazing
Especially
scenery and stuff.
especially for fantasy
Yeah.
things, just because the South Island looks like an amazing fantasy
Yeah.
landscape. It's why we filmed Balin's Route,
Yeah.
part of
Yeah,
Balin's Route down on the South
absolutely.
Island, because
it's just it's
it
immediate
looks like
production value.
like it's so insane for the scenes that we shot in Balin's Route that like there's the one that always everyone loves is the Balin just walking
Drone ones, yeah.
the drone ones of Balin walking out of Honeywood
Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
The valley.
we could literally point the camera in any fucking direction.
Any direction,
There was
yeah.
a couple of things where like, oh, there's a little house down there,
Yeah,
or there's a
yeah.
dock hut over there,
Yeah.
or there's a like power pole over there. We'd need to paint that out, but
Yeah.
basically any direction.
Any direction was
it's
just
just
mwah.
beautiful. It's
Yeah.
so insane.
Yeah, part of me wishes we were more based down there so we could just so easily.
Oh, yeah.
Because any direction you drive, like 30 minutes, half an hour, like, that's the same thing. 30 minutes to an hour. 30 minutes, half an hour, you know.
Yeah.
I thought you were doing 6 1/2 does the other.
So,
You know,
yeah.
30 minutes, half an hour.
You could drive in any direction for like a very short amount of time and just find another hidden gem.
Yeah.
And it's just so much production value. But we've got a green screen now, so we can just do that whenever.
Yeah,
we
we don't fucking need the
We don't
production
need
value
New
of
Zealand.
South Island. We
We
just
have
go
a
into a green screen. We can make whatever we
green
want.
screen.
Up until that point, fantasy films had just been popcorn films. Like they didn't win awards. They didn't change cultural landscape. And here, Lord of the Rings was changing the cultural landscape of film and media. And then the third one won 13 Academy Awards.
Yeah, just it won everything.
Which I think is still in the top 3 highest of
I'd believe it. Yeah.
of wins for a single film. Oh no, 11 wins.
Yeah.
I thought it was 13. Anyway, 11 wins.
Is that number one? Is it number one spot?
I think it might be number 1 spot. Oh no, but it's tied with Titanic.
Yeah.
And tied with Ben-Hur.
Oh.
So there we go. There's another fantasy film.
What are your 2 favorite scenes or moments? And
I'd like to go first.
You go
okay.
first.
Go
Okay,
right then.
I
well,
hadn't read the books.
Yeah.
Okay?
Neither, yeah.
So I went into every film just watching it. Everything
Same.
is new to me,
Same.
and it was
Same.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I purposely didn't read the books until
Yeah.
after.
in the end of the first film, when Gandalf fights the Balrog,
Yeah.
and then he gets pulled down, I'm like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah.
I was devastated.
Same.
Yeah.
Gandalf was my
So-
favorite character.
So actually, it was the start of the second film where it's like it's going through the mountains, and then you hear his voice going, "Yo, shall
And
not."
it's the echo. It's
Yeah,
something
and
with
the
the
thing-
reverberation.
And then it's kind of the camera goes down into the thing, and I'm like, oh my god! And then you see him still fighting. I'm like, he's not dead.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You're
I
just-
remember.
you
Yeah.
describing this now just gave
Yeah.
me chills.
Get
Yeah.
goosebumps. So
I'm
it's like,
getting goosebumps
I
thinking about,
remember that.
Oh my god. And then just the falling.
Yeah,
and
the
him
fall,
going-
and he's fighting, he's falling, and then you're like, oh
and
my
then
god!
he's on the
Gandalf
mountain
isn't
top
dead.
fucking like,
Yeah.
Oh my god. I've got chills.
It was such a perfect way to bring his character back because you're like, yeah, you go into it and you're like, well, he's already dead. No, he's fighting. He's fucking fighting. Go Gandalf. Go Gandalf. And then his reveal in that film, and he's like, I'm back, baby. I'm here to Gandalf it up. That was my favorite line. Was I'm here to Gandalf it up.
I'm going Gandalf
Did
you
he
up,
say- did he say
motherfucker.
it? Did he say
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I think so.
I'm here to Gandalf it up.
Yeah, I think
When the film was that?
before he stomped an orc on the curb.
He curb stomped an orc.
He tells an
you
orc
not
to
remember
bite the curb and then he just stomps
I'm
him.
here to Gandalf it up.
Stop. Goes down.
Bite the curb.
This is how I remember it. I haven't seen it in a
My favorite part, and it's because I'm a deep fantasy nerd, is all of the stuff with the treants and Treebeard
yeah.
and
Really?
Merry and
Yeah.
Pippin.
Yeah.
The bit that gives me chills every time is in the second film
Yeah.
when the treants attack Isengard.
I love that as
you're
well.
You're like, take that, motherfucker.
What's fucking up,
That's-
Saruman?
I-
Fucking trees taking you
I
down, bitch.
love
bitch.
that bit as well, where they finally decide to march.
Yeah,
and I was
yeah.
like, "Fuck yeah!" But I remember that being and the Two Towers being that every time they cut back to Merry and Pippin in the trees, being like, "Oh, okay, you could get through this." Especially,
I've seen that's
'cause-
not. It's the opposite for me. I'm like,
Really?
yeah, we're back with the fucking trees and Merry and Pippin. Here we
Right,
go.
right. That's so crazy because
I am.
I think you're intercutting those scenes with Helm's Deep, and I was
You are,
for
yeah, yeah.
me it was like because okay, actually that's my answer.
Helm's
my
Deep.
answer's in Helm's Deep.
I mean,
Helm's Deep's my second place.
Yeah.
of course.
but
In fact,
but-
Two Towers is my favorite of the three.
Yeah. Fellowship of the Ring's my favorite. I think Helm's Deep might be my number one, but just because I remember, like, I was like, how are you doing this? I just wanted to be there so bad. Like, all I want is a virtual reality game that recreates Helm's Deep to perfection. I want to be standing on that wall, seeing the impossible army, firing the arrows, ladders coming up, pushing them back down, the wall breaks, getting down, defending the thing.
Did you play the fucking
was a
must have come out in
PlayStation.
2005 or
Yeah.
something? The PlayStation version of
I
Helm's
loved
Deep.
it. Yeah.
Of the second film. Well, it was of the second film, but obviously a portion
Yeah,
of it is Helm's
yeah.
Deep.
It was
It
as
was
close as I
actually
could get.
it was a pretty good recreation.
It was
of
as good
Helm's
as they
Deep.
could get with the tech,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I remember being like, "Oh, this will do for now."
Yeah.
I still hope to this day that they create like a 1-to-1 like Helm's Deep.
Oh, that
my
would be
god,
amazing.
for like VR. If VR keeps getting better, I just want to like, especially with what are those gloves called where you can start like, you can feel the gloves.
Haptic gloves.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah, there are a lot of top moments in
Yeah.
the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy for me.
For me, my favorite, you said two. My favorite is Fellowship of the Ring. So I'll never recapture. It was the nostalgia of this is the start of something. It was the first time experiencing this thing, and the way the Lord of the Rings opens, like it's just the perfect, like your Galadriel's voice. And the montage, and I was in it immediately. It's a black screen, and you hear the whisper, and you're like, "I'm in." Like even as a kid, I'm like, "You've already got me."
Yeah.
And from that point, and then you see the armies marching Mount Doom, and I'd never seen special effects like that. Anyway, that's my favorite scene is the Mines of Moria and the
of course.
and it's
so good.
Mines of Moria, and it was just like because it's almost a vignette. It's like a little film within the bigger film, but it's like. It's a it's from Pippin knocking the
Oh,
thing
yeah.
down the well. You hear the echoes of things starting.
Fool of a took, fool of a took.
And then they bar the they bar the doors, and you hear Boromir going, "They have they have a cave troll."
Yeah.
And then just the battle taking place in there and running out.
That
It's like-
scene when they're all the stairs which start breaking away and they have to jump to the stairs and then the stairs go
yeah.
Oh,
and then as the stairs are falling they jump to the next
orcs
one.
on the side, like firing the little
That-
they're more goblins firing their little bows.
Yeah, the goblins. Your point about it's like a mini film within the film.
Yeah.
That is actually not the genius just of Peter Jackson, but the genius of well-made films.
Yeah.
Is that's what every scene or sequence should be in a
Yeah.
film. Is you should. Listener, you may have not necessarily have heard of the 3-act structure that all films go through, but every scene should go through a 3-act structure as well, or not necessarily every scene, every sequence should go through that as well. And that's what a lot of people say about Helm's Deep as well. They're like, Helm's Deep has the 3-act structure. It's
Yeah.
a film within itself.
Yeah.
That's why Helm's Deep's so fucking good.
It feels like that's part of the thing with Lord of the Rings is it's not just a classic road trip. Because it is it's
a road trip.
It's a road trip.
It's a
film,
journey
really.
film.
It's a journey film, but it's not just a road trip where they see the thing and like a little thing happens. It's like there's so much that takes place in every stop they go to. Everything feels justified. There's a purpose to it. Something changes there. Like in that case, obviously Gandalf doesn't make it through, so the journey's completely thrown off. Yeah, I don't know. That sequence was just watching that for the first time was the best thing. It's one of those things. I feel Peter Jackson. I want to forget that I've ever seen it and watch it again for the first time. There will never be another Lord of the Rings. And
I had two films, Lord of the Rings and The Matrix.
The
I
Matrix.
want to watch first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I don't know what
Everyone
it.
watch.
I don't know what it is about the current media landscape. Maybe it's that there's just so much spoilers prior to films about like this actor's in it, this actor's in it, this is being made, this is happening. Here's 72 trailers before the film.
Yeah.
I just never had, I've not had in a long time a film experience where I just sit down and just am just blown away by that kind of. Like as you say, like The Matrix and Lord of the Rings, I didn't know what was happening in Lord of the Rings, and I just if you just sit down and just go, the excitement of like what the fuck is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I just haven't had that. I mean, the closest I could say to that would be Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
But I still knew a few things going into it. I knew certain actors were or weren't going to be in it. And
see, I kind of you had to make the choice to kind of like put earplugs in leading up to it, and that's what I did for those.
Yeah.
What would be the I'm trying to. The closest, but still relatively far away. I'm talking like because Lord of the Rings was like just up here.
Yeah.
But the closest I would have gotten in recent memory might be Dune, like in the IMAX theater, and just I didn't really know
because
the
I've
story.
not read Dune either.
Yeah.
Apparently Dune's a hard read.
Like, not knowing what's going to happen, or just
just the just getting sucked into the story.
Not knowing what's going to happen as part of it, I guess.
I think so.
Because it's that anticipation, that excitement of what's going to come next.
Yeah.
Dune would be. That is why I hold Dune so like I've got so much wrapped up in Dune because it is the closest I think I'm ever going to experience to Lord of the Rings again.
Yeah, I haven't watched any trailers to number 2.
Yeah.
I might actually do what you're. I have watched the one trailer that is out so far.
Yeah,
I think I might. Yeah, because you're right. Actually, watching that first Dune was probably the closest I've gotten in a wee while. So I might actually just for Dune going forward.
Yeah. So Lord of the Rings pretty good, guys?
That's
it's
okay.
pretty good.
Film that
there's going to be a weird question, but I just want to know what for you guys is the most forgettable part. I'm going to give mine first. The most forgettable part of Lord of the Rings.
Probably forgot
I always forget that at the mid to late third film, Frodo gets captured, ends up in that tower. And then the orcs are like coming up the stairs or whatever, and and they take off his mithril and all that other stuff.
And that's kind of tied into the spider bit, right?
It happens just after the spider bit because he gets captured, and then Sam fights the spider, but before being able to fight him, Frodo gets taken away.
Do you know?
And I always come. Oh, that's right. Frodo ends up in this weird tower bit. Fucking move on. Get back with Sam.
It felt a bit pointless.
It feels a little bit pointless.
I agree. I didn't really.
You could kind of because it's like
is not a very good filmmaker. Is that what you're saying?
Basically, because it's like Sam, Frodo, Gollum, Gollum betrays Sam, Frodo. Frodo gets captured briefly. Sam, Frodo, and then Gollum comes back.
Because nothing
so
really
you
changes.
don't like Peter Jackson as a filmmaker?
Not really, and I think the third film's garbage.
Well, tied to the third film. This is why the third film for me is my third favorite. I think it's a lot of people's favorites because it does do a great job at tying everything off. Like, but yes, that. But I actually, until you mentioned it, totally forgotten that bit exists.
Yeah.
The part I like the least of the Lord of the Rings trilogy is Aragorn going with Legolas and Gimli to the ghosts. And getting...
See, I quite like that again because of my high fantasy thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a ghost army.
It didn't tie into... It felt too supernatural compared to the rest of the film, to me. There hadn't been... I know there were Nazgul and the Ring Wraiths and stuff.
You know there's like Sauron, this big magical eye. Like...
Yeah, but I don't know, but just, like... There had just been no ghosts until this point. Like, and then that
I guess there's a difference between fantasy and
ghosts.
There's a difference
How
between
do you react to me like that?
There's a difference between fantasy and supernatural, right?
Exactly. There's a difference between fantasy.
Because if a vampire randomly popped up, you'd be like,
for me it was like there were elves, orcs, humans, a couple of minor fantasy elements. But like a couple of like supernatural elements with the Sauron and the eye and the ring and all that stuff. And I thought that I had all the information I thought I knew everything that it was going to have. The third film came along and was like, oh no, now there's an army of ghosts. And it was two things. It was
they're a bit of a Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, they fixed the problem too easily. They came over and just wiped the orcs out. I was like, that battle was so epic. The Minas Tirith, that's the battle for Minas Tirith. Yep. Was so epic, and I was loving it. Humans versus orcs.
Do you mean Helm's Deep?
No, third
Minas
film.
Tirith.
You know, there's that big castle in the.
So that's actually. Oh no, God! We're critiquing my favorite film.
Yeah.
And this is just an issue with adapting books, unfortunately. But it's not orcs. They're orcs in the army, but it's that random tribal with the big elephants that they're fighting.
Is it?
Yeah.
Because they're part of it, but they're like a small contingent of.
They're a pretty big contingent of it, but unfortunately, in the books, it's fully explained where they come from and who they are, and why they're fighting on Sauron's side and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right.
But in the films, they just kind of turn up.
Well, there's one shot of them marching. In Lord of the Rings, and that's kind of that.
And it's not explained why and who they are.
There's two things. There's a scene where Frodo and them hide from them as they walk past.
Yeah.
And then, they're ambushed by the humans a little bit, and you see the humans kind of resistance take out in it. But that's my main gripe was it felt a little bit too much supernatural. I think it was just the scale of it, and just how easily it dealt with a problem. It was just like, and I know that's like it's still storytelling, but they just kind of like, oh, that problem's gone.
That's something that sorry, not the ghosts, but the unknown faceless tribal army. Yeah, it's a problem that I have with a lot of modern fantasy films. Is you don't know why the bad guys are bad, why they're there, what their goal is. Yeah. With the orcs in 1, 2, and the orcs in 3. You know what they are, who they are, why they're fighting, all of that jazz. Like, you get a lot of scenes with the bad guys. Yeah. And so you're like, I understand the good versus evil, why they're evil, why they're good, etc., etc., etc. Yeah. But in modern films and then that random tribal army, it sometimes feels like the good guys need to smash some people, so here's a fucking faceless army. Yeah.
Are you saying that you're a better author than J.R. Tolkien?
Yes.
Yeah. And a better director, obviously, than Peter Jackson.
Yeah. Obviously, that's the whole.
And so what I'm taking away from this is that you hate Lord of the Rings,
and I hate Peter Jackson.
That's a good summation of today's podcast.
Man, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised to hear that. Actually, Alan.
So I've got a little bit of trivia for you, and I don't know how true this is. So there's an orc. Do you guys remember that white orc in the Battle for Minas Tirith with the deformed face? Yeah. And
he's
kind of like the random
he talks old orcs talk like that.
There's the catapult that lands from Fire Splinter instead of lands next to me and he spits on it. That guy. Yeah. I don't know if this is true or not, but I want to believe it. So one of the people that Peter Jackson was talking to was the Weinstein company about making this before the whole obviously Harvey Weinstein thing came out. And Harvey Weinstein was actively involved in Lord of the Rings, and I think he had originally pledged for 3, and then he was pushing Peter Jackson down to 2. It might have even been 1, being like, you have to do this, and really pressuring Peter Jackson to do this. And eventually, Peter Jackson, because I think they actually acquired the rights, and then Peter Jackson went to New Line, and New Line had to buy the rights back off Weinstein. And Peter Jackson was obviously so jaded and so just a little disgruntled and pissed with Weinstein that they kind of based this orc off Weinstein. So Weinstein's very much an influence of this orc's name is Gothmog. is partly inspired by Harvey Weinstein. And it's kind of Peter Jackson's middle finger to Harvey Weinstein.
That's fucking hilarious.
I hope that's true. I heard that recently.
That's cool.
But yeah, thank God that he managed to get away from that guy. So that would actually have really tainted it now, wouldn't it? If it was like, oh, it's produced by that.
Yeah.
It kind of
guy.
genuinely would have.
It really would have.
Yeah.
Anytime I see that Weinstein logo appear before a film now, I'm
Yeah, it's weird. It's jarring, eh?
weird.
You
Yeah,
kind of
it's
get,
really
ooh,
jarring.
ooh, ooh.
To end, let's really quick. So Lord of the Rings is perfect. In my mind, it's a little bit tainted now by The Hobbit.
Yeah. And now again by Rings of Power,
who really are capitalizing on the success of Lord of the Rings.
That's kind of all they're doing. They're really. I mean, I know we could do another podcast about why The Hobbit is the way it is.
Yeah.
But because I realized Peter Jackson also made The Hobbit, but it really feels like both The Hobbit and Rings of Power fall into that camp that I was talking about before. That it's just fantasy films for the sake of being fantasy films. And instead of telling a good story and having good characters, it's just like, look, it's like a kid playing with toys and just smushing them against each other, just going fight, fight, fight.
Yeah.
And
believing that the aesthetic of the world is enough to like just keep people engaged.
Yeah. Having a shot of someone wistfully looking into a sunset saying a meaningless ethereal dialogue is actually going to capture audiences.
Yeah, nah.
And it's just like the amount of stuff in Rings of Power where it's just elves standing looking at a sunset talking, and you're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, that's probably why the industry is commonly referred to now as Schmings of Schmauer.
Really?
No.
I was like, where are you going?
I just hadn't spoken in a few minutes, and I wanted some attention.
I like it. We'll call it Schmings of Schmauer from now on.
Schmings of Schmauer.
Schmobbit and Schmings of Schmauer.
Do you know, like, so this is and you can see, like, it's a really clear trajectory. With Lord of the Rings, each of the subsequent films that come out get more and more money at the box office. Hobbit is the opposite. It's like less and less as it goes down. The first one, obviously, was everyone just wanted more Lord of the Rings. Watched, they're like, it was okay. The second one came out, then third one. I remember I watched the first one, like, opening week for the first Hobbit. I was just really pumped on it, and I was like, Then second one, I was like, I did see it at the theaters, but I was a little bit like, I waited a few weeks until and then the third one I watched it on plane.
Yeah,
On
so
the way home from
I
somewhere.
had the exact same experience. The third one I watched many months, possibly a couple of years later, on a plane, and was really confused because I couldn't remember what happened in the first two.
Yeah. So there's some character with bird poo on his head.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like that guy, like there's a rabbit. Like they
remember number 2 as well. They tried out that 63 frames per second.
I saw the second one at 60. Yeah.
And I watched it in the 63 frames, and I like literally had the sense of embarrassment for New Zealand and for Peter Jackson. And I remember in the cinema, like almost live film thing, like getting embarrassed, flushing red, because the opening scene is that fucking weird orc. What's his name? The one that follows them, Drags, the one that's always on a fucking on a warg rider dude. And he's talking to someone, I can't remember, Saruman or something. Yeah. And it looked to me like a PlayStation cutscene.
This is the problem. As soon as the frame rate pops up to that high, every imperfection is highlighted. You can see everything crystal clear. And
because Saruman was played by Christopher Lee, but it was all green screen from LA, and he was now in this fully CG environment with a fully CG character.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh man, I'm watching a Playstation cutscene.
Yeah.
And this was the opening, from memory, it may not actually be. From memory, this was the opening of the film. And I was like,
now, I distinctly, there were two things I remember. I remember all the CG feeling like a PlayStation cutscene and not meshing with the world properly. It was just like, there's a real world and there's a CG element on top of it. That's awful. And then prosthetics, being able to, like, when you cut to a close-up of a dwarf, you can see the mesh of where the fake hair meets the. It's just like the level of detail. So it's like, he's an actor being. God damn it! And it was really just jarring the entire way through to the point where I don't remember that second film at all.
I hardly do either, because I've now just said that's the opening scene and I actually don't know what it is.
But there's a problem. Like I don't care. None of the characters. There were so many issues, and you're right. We could talk about this in a whole podcast. We should just wrap this bit up. But Peter Jackson was thrown under the bus to make.
He was
these.
really.
So
I would love to, again. Could be a podcast about this. I would love to fucking see an alternate universe where Guillermo del Toro made The Hobbit. As one film, because he was doing one film.
Yeah.
Well, was he? Wow.
Yeah.
And he would have done a great job. It should have been one film because the book's tiny.
Yeah,
and
I remember because reading it as a I've probably read it when I was like 11 or something. The Hobbit is a kid's book,
Yeah.
and it's most certainly it's not a bad book, but it's one of those. It's like they left the Shire, they went over the bridge,
Yeah.
they met a little troll,
It's
they went
Peter
under
Jackson
the
was
mountain,
really
they went
thrown under the bus about trying to take those elements and mold them with this high fantasy world that he'd created,
Yeah, yeah.
and trying to honor this Middle Earth he'd created while bringing a character with poop in his hair
yeah.
into that.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it just doesn't work. Like
The thing is, the character with poop in his hair would have worked in a children's
Exactly,
movie. Like
yeah.
if they made The Hobbit as a not necessarily a children's movie, but
Yeah.
if they made it in the spirit of the book, which is not a fantasy war epic.
Yeah.
That book is just not a fantasy war epic.
Yeah.
And that is why it's known as the Schmobbit.
The
Yeah.
Schmobbit.
And-
That's exactly.
and-
Thanks
that's,
for your
yeah,
input,
the
Ryan.
Spoken
Schmobbit.
in a few minutes, so Schmobbit.
I wonder if like I do feel sorry for Peter Jackson because I feel I mean he's probably absolutely fine. He would have made a bunch of money from it or whatever.
Apparently, he's pretty gutted by it.
I think I'd be pretty gutted by it. Like I feel like I would have tainted this perfect thing
Yeah.
I'd created.
I
And
know. I know a lot of the cast feel, like a cast
Yeah.
that crossover feel, like Ian McKellen's a little bit like.
Yeah. You hear all those horror stories, but not to let's bring it back to Lord of the Rings. Best trilogy of all time, in my opinion.
I think
For
so.
me, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
I-
I may, if I was a bit older, I might think Star Wars was the best trilogy of all time.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
I
I'm
can
very fan.
understand that as well. Yeah, and I really like Jason Bourne trilogy actually too. But no, Lord of the
Jason
Rings.
Bourne is a terrible film.
You don't like?
Wow.
That's right. You don't like the Jason Bourne
Oh, that's
films.
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Maybe
That's
we
right,
could
I
have a
forgot
whole
about this.
podcast
We got a whole
on
podcast about
how I don't like the
I
Bourne
literally
trilogy.
I'm actually actively looking forward to my Jason Bourne rewatch. I
Good on you, bro.
love Jason Bourne, man.
Yeah.
So good.
Overrated.
So absolutely not. Run, wrap us out, dog.
Let's go. Let's go.
Ah.
I said we're talking about Lord of the Rings and what it did to our personality and how it made us evolve and wanna be filmmakers and actors and how it affected the New Zealand film industry and how we all wanted to be in the fellowship of the ring and be filming and we're jealous.
Yeah.
And we're jealous like Smash Palace.
Yeah.
That's another New Zealand film.
Yeah, this is another New Zealand film.
Yeah,
That was like a topical rhyme.
Random.
A
Did that
topical,
happen?
very,
Did you plan that,
very
or was
niche
it-
rhyme.
Yeah.
Because most people.
Lord of the Rings! Shmobbit the Sphinx!
Doubling down.
The music's going away, Ron. Stop it.
Oh my God.
Guys, we've got meetings all day, but I'm gonna go watch Lord of the Rings. Bye.
That's a good idea. Jump.
Ooh, it's a bit hot. What? Because it's the flame mug. That's why it's a bit hot. Do you want a flame mug? It's pretty sweet. Check out VLDL.shop. VLDL.shop.